Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are having 27 champions added to the base pool, and that is the single largest amount of champions that I can myself recall ever being added in like a single day to the basic. And I decided to rank them. I saw Seaton's video yesterday with his thoughts and opinions, and I figured I will put my spin on this video as well, because obviously we do see the game differently. And the key difference here is going to be that, obviously, I do focus more on the competitive game modes, which of these champions are more relevant in Battlegrounds and Alliance War and things alike. And that often does, give you differences. Like here, a great example would be, for example, champions like White Tiger and Spiral, because I do think White Tiger is the better champion overall, but Spiral being mid does the more important things. Spiral does deal with, Serpent and Dark Phoenix very, very well, and that is an important thing, and hence we have seen a ton of people rank up and use Spiral. But in general, we can all agree that the champions that do well in the competitive game modes and are the ones that are ranked and used by the most skilled players with the best access to resources are also typically the champions that work best for the rest of the game. And that said, I have obviously grouped them to the expected and current meta relevance and significance to have those champions ranked up. And the first group is effectively what I call don't bother crowd. And that is like, unless you really love the champion, these are the champions that I generally think there's absolutely no point in investing anything in. In just about every single case of these champions, you can find the use for them somewhere at some time. Often when Kabam effectively will specifically dictate, use that and that tag, and these champions are the only ones that fit. But for most part, even what these champions are good at, there are other champions who do it better. And a great example here would be like Isophene. Isophene is good at countering Serpent, which is not like that great. And she's kind of mid at everything else. Kabam refused to balance her up and make her a decent champion to a point where now she's just not gonna do anything really for anyone. She can work as a Serpent counter again, but realistically, ideally, you'd want to look, rank, and invest in better ones than her. And, some of these champions are just flat out completely outdated as well. Like Gwenpool is just, too old, too outdated. And then, Night Thrasher, he did got a buff, but God, you don't want to bother with him when you have like champions like Crossbone, champions like Okoye, champions like Nick Fury, champions like Mantis, Hitmonkey, Stealthy, a plethora of champions that will do everything this guy can do and better and faster. And then there's Carnage. I love Carnage. I enjoy using Carnage, but you are not gonna really use Carnage for just about anything, again, because there are just better options for everything he could potentially do. He's very fun. I love using that guy. But if I would ever rank him to like rank 2 or 3, that would be purely for, enjoying that champion, not because he'd be a necessity or a good investment on catalysts. Similar to Sentry. Sentry is a ramp-up champion that, first of all, significantly limits the usage of that champion. And the second thing is, it's kind of like the key trap of ramp-up champions, because if they're not good in short fights, you will hardly ever use them to begin with, because Kabam does not create much of content for that stuff. And if they do, in most cases, you can find champions that do better work than Sentry does anyway in the long-form content, so just not really worth investing in there. So yeah, this is the saddest group. This is the group that many of these champions I don't have as 7 stars. And I wouldn't really care. I wouldn't really care. This is mixed up, by the way. This is meant to go, whoopsie. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next group. We have Ultron. And Ultron still is in the group of almost never. That is, again, I have a 7-star Ultron. I think I took him to rank 3, at the very least rank 2 when I got him. And reality is, again, there's just champions that are better than him at just about everything. You can do fine things in like questing, and especially if you can synergize him up. But it just doesn't answer the problems the game is asking you to answer right now. And that's kind of the story of a lot of champions that are getting up there in the age, you know. 'Cause champions just age out, and Holderon's one of those. He doesn't do the things you'd want a tech champion to do. For instance, when you look up at who you go up against right now, is he going to be particularly good at dealing with Onslaught? No. Is he going to be capable of dealing with Captain Britain? No. Is he going to be particularly good at this, that, and that? No. And especially, he needs like synergy to unlock his full potential, so it generally doesn't work too well. Then we have Dr. Voodoo, one of the newer ones, and I look at Dr. Voodoo as more capable champion than Isophine because he is more versatile, and under specific conditions, I do think his power control is absolutely amazing. But again, when it comes to meta, you just don't see him, and I don't expect to see him much anywhere because he did get a tune-up. I don't think it was necessarily potent enough. I think he's like 1-2 good bits of abilities away and maybe a bit more damage to make it there, but I look at him as, you know, let's say similar to Kushala, but like 70% of it, because Kushala has immunities, Kushala can block unblockable, she has more of it. Yes, Kushala does not have the power control, but it's just not quite good enough. Now, CMM, again, with Synergy, she used to kind of shine, but we have moved away from that content a lot. Now, running CMM without synergies generally involves you just, you know, praying to God you have cooperative AI and spamming heavy attacks if you want to maintain her charges. There are some fights that she can do very well, but you don't really expect to see her in any meaningful content. Therefore, I still do have very kind of like little interest in her personally as well. I just think she hasn't aged well, and she was created, you know, for MCOC at a very different time for very different needs. Moving forward, we have Nightcrawler, which again, he can be somewhat annoying on defense at times, but he's more of a meta merchant defender. But even then, in those metas where he is helped to excel, he's not as potent as you know, similar type of defenders would be. The fact that he does have some offensive use does help, and I think under situations he kind of can somewhere be, you know, useful. He definitely can, but I just don't think he can be useful enough to make it kind of worthwhile necessarily. And the new Falcon, you know, we'll see what his tune-up is, and his placement might change accordingly, but I highly doubt it. Then we have the champions that can work, the champions that do have places in the game. For instance, we all know that Purgatory was absolutely amazing for the raids. She can work in Battlegrounds, she can work in Alliance Wars as well under specific conditions. And again, I do think she has value. She's not like at the hottest levels of, you know, you should get her, you should invest in her, but at the same time, she's by far from a bad champion. She's a very good champion with some solid uses, and under specific conditions, she can be, you know, amazing for sure. Like I loved the incursions run that I did with her. She obviously absolutely destroyed the raids. There are times and metas and nodes and champion combinations and Alliance Wars when she can get used and does, and there are similar instances in Battlegrounds as well. And similar to the Mystic Spidey. The Mystic Spidey is obviously only kind of like let down by Helpful. Another big problem for the Mystic Spidey is, you know, the arrival of the new Mystic Spidey. But even this guy at rank 4, high sig, he can be terrifying, he can be fast, he can do plenty of fights. But that will likely happen in like fairly set specific situations. He's not quite up to the level of the top of the metagame right now. But I do think he's one of those champions where if people do, you know, take a leap of faith with him, you can see quite good results. I actually kind of want to move him up a bit as well, but maybe. Then situational ones. And these are the champions that are powerful, are amazing, but they need their specific situations to shine. These are the champions on the cusp of being kind of like mainstay. Like for instance, I do have Medusa, and she's not at the top of the cosmic class. There are metas where, you know, I'm super grateful that I have Medusa and I add her to my deck and I use her. But as soon as the restrictions or the meta kind of shifts, they are also some of the champions that are quite quick to leave my Battlegrounds deck, or, you know, not get used, and they are not the priorities of the investment. They are the champions that you either like a lot and invest in them, or they are the champs that you kind of rank up for very specific purposes. Similar with Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom, for instance, when the heal reversal is becoming a big necessity, then Anti-Venom is like the second best champion in the game, just behind the leader. And in generic situations, he's quite great. I loved using him in raids. But again, as soon as like the meta opens up and the playing field kind of gets a bit more clear, you know, he still loses the ground to Photon in terms of overall value, and to Spider-Woman, to Spider-Ham, and to a handful of other champions. These are generally the champions that kind of live on the outside of top 10 or on the brink of top 10 of their respective classes. Kind of like good, there, and present, but, you know, not the must-haves almost ever, I'd say. These are very, very good to have in specific situations. Now, next up, something that I would already kind of call in the meta. And the use of these champions do depend on the nodes, but these are ones you already see a lot, often, and most of the time being used, being present, being mentioned as, you know, the best options, the perfect options, or, you know, these are the champions that significant portion of the skilled player base have already invested in and use them. I do think a couple of them are a bit less popular right now, like Dazzler and Black Panther Civil War. Dazzler primarily is losing a bit of ground right now because Jean Grey, Onslaught, and a few other mutants are on the fire and tearing it up. So she might actually move down to situational. Black Panther Civil War, I think, is only going to become more popular because he does require a SIG investment. But Sentinel, Deadpool X-Force, Call Obsidian, Gentle are all the champions that you see around constantly, maybe not in every meta, but frequently enough, that do tear through things. They do have, you know, either dual purpose uses, or they are just amazing and excellent and does something the best in the game. Like Gentle is you know, good bullseye counter, does some other fights fine, but he's often like a clutch defender. Sentinel's been like extremely versatile and does go from strength to strength. He has potential defense, and, you know, we all have lost much to him. And then he also does, you know, do plenty of matches offensively fine enough. Carl is just a dumb, stupid ass champion that just nukes through just about everything, but does not have the broadest matchup list. And Deadpool X-Force, again, is a nuke, the fastest nuke against the Elena, I would say, and also a champion that often gets overpowered under specific node conditions, where he goes from being great to insanely amazing. And the top three champions, I think, currently are staples in the game. I see Zola losing a bit of ground right now because obviously there are more counters available to him, but still he is an absolute staple of the metagame. So is Okoye, and so is Mr. Sinister. And by staple, I mean that in just about every single season, on just about every single Alliance war map, you will see these champions, either as defenders or champions being used in attack. Just about in every Battlegrounds match, not only season, you will see these champions being drafted as, you know, auto draft options or amazing options. And it's not even about them being in the decks, it's about them, you know, being drafted all the time, constantly. And, you know, for instance, Okoye is present, and I think at this point, in about 60% of the players' drafts, people do draft an Okoye. And, you know, maybe Sinister and Zola doesn't have as high a percentage at the moment, but they're definitely the champions. You know, when you open a random stream, you're going to see people use or fight against a lot. And I think that is like the biggest proof of how good these champions are, because they are not only good enough to make people's Battlegrounds decks, they are good enough to be constantly used and drafted there. So there you go. This is how I see the new 27 champions being added to the game right now in the basic crystals. Let me know what you think, what you'd change, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have already